Okay, sorry. So now, till now we have seen two-level, multi-level analysis, Okay, but also it is possible to have three-level and more level regression models for multi-level analysis. In principle, the extension of two-level regression model to three and more level, it is straightforward. That means just adding the hierarchies or the levels. The patient level, the physician level, the hospital level. Three levels could be there. Or even more levels could be there. But that means there is an outcome variable at the first level and at the lowest level, hierarchically with that sequence. In addition, there may be explanatory variables at all available levels. In each level, if we do have 4 level or 3 level, there will be predictor variables at each level. And there is also the outcome variable at the first and at the lowest level. Okay, the problem is that 3 and more level models can become complicated immediately, That will be very complicated, even the interpretation. So in addition to the usual fixed regression coefficients, we must entertain the possibility that regression coefficients for first level explanatory variables may vary across units of both the second and the third level. You see, the lowest level variable could be explained in such a way that it could vary from the second level, and again it could vary at the third level. So regression coefficients for the second level explanatory variable may vary across again to the third level. And to explain such variation, we must include cross-level interaction. Cross-level interaction, that means the cross interaction of variables from level 1, level 2, level 3. So these three variables at the three levels should be crossed to make interaction, So regression slopes for the cross-level interaction between first level and second level variables may themselves vary across the third level. You see, the cross interaction of the first and the second level variable may vary the cross interaction of the first, the second, and the third variable, which is very complicated. To explain such variation, we need a three-way interaction involving variables at the three levels. So a specification of the higher level variance and covariances should be driven by theoretical considerations. Practically, it might be very difficult. Especially when models become large and complicated, it is advisable to avoid higher order interaction. It is better to avoid higher order interaction. And to include in the random part only those elements for which there is a strong theoretical or empirical justification. So this implies that an exhaustive search for second order and higher order interaction is not a good idea. So it is not advisable to go beyond a two-level, multi-level, So in general, we should look for higher order interactions only if there is a strong theoretical justification for their importance. That is the implication or the justification. So the formula for intra-class correlation coefficient will be the same as that we have seen previously. But now, if we do have three-level hierarchies, if we do have three levels, the total variation will be level 1 plus level 2 plus, that means the second level plus the third level plus the second level plus the lower level. The summation of all the unexplained variations at each hierarchy will be the total unexplained variation. And each of the variation at each hierarchy will be calculated by this formula for the intra-class correlation coefficient, Okay, so this is the idea for the extension of two-level to three and more than three-level multi-level analysis. So the extension of generalized linear model, actually, this concept has been cited in the introduction session of the course. This is a PowerPoint already that have been cited in the introduction session of your course, So the types of the covariance structure, selecting an appropriate covariance structure is very important. So this covariance or covariance structure measures the degree of association among variables or among repeated measures of the same variable. So simply covariance is measuring the relation among variables or measuring the correlation between repeated measurements. So covariance structure is the statistical test or method of measuring covariance or correlation simply. So as the name indicates, covariance is simply correlation. So covariance is a measure of degree of association between variables or the degree of correlation between repeated measurements. So that covariance structure means the statistical test or method of measuring correlation between variables or between repeated measurements. So that is it. More specifically, repeated measurements covariance structures estimate the association among residuals of repeated measurements from the same experimental unit. That is the idea of covariance structure, you know. So species provides a number of standard variance and covariance relationships. These are listed there in the species that we have seen. The variance component type is 1. So how does it do the correlation or the association between repeated measurements or between variables is mathematically given here and explained. So this is explanation for each of the types of covariance structures that has been used by species, you know. So this is like a working correlation structure that we have seen in the generalized estimating equation. The independent or unstructured one is given here, the compound symmetry, the heterogeneous compound symmetry. The assumption of these covariance structures, the way how they measure the correlation between variables or between repeated measurements is explained here in the PowerPoint, you know. The first order autoregressive, and actually autoregressive, this first order autoregressive is exactly the same as the one we have seen in the generalized estimating equation, you know. The heterogeneous first order autoregressive is again, and the Topli's structure, the heterogeneous Topli's structure is explained here in the PowerPoint, and you can read it, the autodependence. So how do we choose out of this working correlation structures is the best? So to find a suitable covariance structure, we need to try the following things. One, try each type one by one. And first, we need to take the unstructured one, the one that we have did before, you know. This is the most complex structure and often fails to run. It becomes statistically non-significant. And second, we need to check the compound symmetry. And then now run other covariance structures that are reasonable based on any pattern seen in the unstructured pattern. If none of the above covariance structure provide a significant p-value for the null model likelihood ratio test, this indicates there is no correlation present in the model's error structure. So that you will need to use this, the variance component structure, to fit an independent covariance structure, you know. If all of them are statistically non-significant, we go back to this, the covariance component, in order to fit that an independent covariance structure. That is which says there is no correlation between the variables or the measured, repeatedly measured variables. That is why we have used this variance component in the previous example, you know. So, but if some of them are statistically significant, the null model likelihood ratio test is a test to determine whether the covariance structure is specified, is the type statement fits the data statistically better than the other model, you know. No correlation, that is independence. So the most appropriate covariance structure for the data is the structure with the smallest AIC value and the smallest BIC value. So that you should try all the covariance structures, and then finally the one with, they should be statistically significant. Among those statistically significant covariance structures, the one with the smallest AIC value will be the better covariance structure. That should be used, you know. So this is all about the covariance structures that could be used in multi-level structure or in multi-level analysis. So thank you very much again. You can read the rest from the PowerPoint, you know.